Today, we're going to be talking about, we'll go over again the process overview and where invoices become involved with UFS, the inbound audit reports that have been created, selecting the invoices for batch to process, what to do with invalid self-determination program invoices, and how to go through and process valid SDP invoices. So as we've covered in a couple other trainings already, but if you haven't been involved with any of those, I want to go ahead and just briefly walk through this process one more time. The consumer chooses the self-determination program. You create the budget with the consumer. They select an FMS. They're entered as a S service delivery type in the case management system. UFS receives who moves on to the S program, and authorizations and other information is needed in order to create your authorizations is done in UFS. The information gets transferred out to e-billing, where the regional center creates the budget and approves the budget. The FMS is going to create invoices and submit them. And the portion that we're going to focus on today is this process where the invoice information is received in UFS. You get your inbound audit report, how you deal with batching, accruing, and paying them, and we'll touch briefly on the fact that that information goes back out to e-billing. So for self-determination, we did create new inbound audit reports, and these are going to generate either with the nightly job or if you transfer data on demand in e-billing to UFS. They're going to be similar to the traditional, but they're going to be specific for just SDP invoicing. You'll notice that the report numbers are pretty much the same, and all we've done is tacked an S onto the end to indicate it is self-determination. There'll be a detail and an exception report. In addition to, well, those two invoices are available in either e-billing or in UFS in the e-billing spool file. But also, you know, invoices that come in may not be valid. Echo. And so we created a invalid invoices report. Give me just 1 second. I, for some reason, have an echo going on. I'm not sure which one, if it's coming from the headset or if it's coming from my voice out here. The first new report is the SDP invalid invoices, and these are invoices that cannot be processed in UFS for one reason or another, and they have to be deleted. We created a new delete option for handling these. It's going to be added to the other delete options you have available on your UFS menu, and this one's going to be option 13. The next report that is new is the SDP valid invoice report, and these are going to be invoices that can be selected for batch and process. And basically, the difference is that these invoices passed an initial authorization check. So here's an example of the inbound audit report and the inbound audit exception report. As you can see, they should look pretty familiar to you. We did add indicators for if there is a advance as part of this. So again, if the advanced money feature ends up being used, we'll provide another training to talk about that feature and those processes. This is an example of an invalid invoice. So some of the things that might happen could be that you got the budget out there and approved, but authorizations weren't set up timely enough. So there's not going to be an authorization for it to go again. The other scenario that might happen is they might submit an invoice that's actually over the authorized amount. So those will fail out in the very beginning, and the information can be communicated back to the FMS to resolve the issues. This is an example of a valid invoice. So as you can see, it basically, at this point, a invoice number from UFS has been assigned to it. It'll tell you what sequence the line is on the invoice. So again, the FMS can submit multiple lined invoices. You'll notice that one of the different features is that they can submit different service codes on the same invoice. They cannot submit invoices that cover different service months. So your invoices are still only going to be for one particular service month. The other thing that they can do, though, is they can also submit more than one invoice for the same service in the same month. Any questions about the report?
Yes, I have two questions. On the first one, if the regional center doesn't have an authorization and it rejects as an invalid, and we enter the authorization, then rerun it again, and that one will become valid?
No. Currently at this time, once an invoice is marked as invalid, it has to be deleted, and the FMS will have to resubmit it. We've been thinking about the scenario you're talking about, and we may be able to include something for that in the near future, and maybe before you guys actually start using it, but we're not sure. We'll have to look at what's involved in doing that.
Okay, you guys probably covered this already, but what happens to the balance? I thought when an invoice is submitted, the available balance is deducted. If it's invalid, does it?
When an invoice is saved, the available balance is deducted. I'll talk a little bit more about what happens with these invalid invoices and what happens when you delete them in just a few minutes.
Yes, thank you.
One more question. Just in case, you said that they can submit more than one invoice in a month. Can they submit two invoices at the same time for the same period service?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
You mentioned it.
And I will cover some additional information about that in just a few minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So we've modified the select batch screen just slightly in that we've added a new filter option where you can just look at SDP invoices by themselves rather than including them with any other traditional invoices. So that'll be something new that you'll see on your screen. And if you just want to see SDP invoices only, you say why. If you don't want to see SDP invoices, you'd say no, and if you want to see, everything, you can just leave it blank. Some other things to know about when selecting SDP invoices for batch. Since the FMS can submit multiple invoices for a service month year on a service code, the service complete flag should always be left as no, so that you don't disencumber the funds. And as I mentioned, the SDP field can be left blank if you want to view all invoices. The other thing that you're not going to want to do is filter for service codes, since the invoices will contain multiple service codes. And on the subscreen display, just to note, only the first service code on the invoice will display, even though you may be processing other service codes within that invoice. The file. Sorry, yes?
Can you put N as default answer for invoices processed? Yes, no? Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not.
The screen before this. Right there. SDP invoices. Can you make it no as a default? And we can change as needed?
We don't have any default features set up into this screen. I will look into, I will put that as a question to see what would it entail to do that. I know that there's not a lot of ability to set flags, differences between regional centers. Your main one that you currently do have the ability to do that with is the authorization, renewal, and one-time service flags. But this screen in and of itself didn't have any existing file sets. So if it's determined that we can't do an RC-based choice, then all regional centers would need to agree on what they would want here as a default. So some of you that are familiar with the database file names that are used for processing invoices, right now the PIN BOI file is basically where your turnaround invoices are held until they're received for batch. And so for SDP, we tried to keep it kind of similar. And so SDP invoices that will be eligible for batch are going to be in the SIN BOI file. So I'm going to first cover valid invoices, and then we'll talk about invalid invoices. So after an SDP invoice has been selected for batch through option 1, the screens after that are the same. You select what invoices you want to process and F6 process. The invoices are written to the PAP control and the L and the M records. And also, these invoices get flagged with an invoice type of SD for self-determination. So they'll be easy to find within the other records. The invoices are edited through traditional edit invoice menu options. On the menu 23, it's option 5, and on the batch screen, it's option 4. Please note, there is no enter update on SDP invoices. You cannot change this invoice from what's been submitted by the FMS. And also, you shouldn't be creating manual invoices for SDP services because that will make your budget out of balance. Again, the budget, that nothing communicates with the budget except for the e-billing invoice itself that the SMS generates. Do you have any questions about that? So as part of the invoice edit process, and because the FMSs can submit more than one invoice with the same service code, service month, and year, we've built in one additional edit. And what it's basically going to do is it's going to take all of the invoices that match cost, service code, service month, year, total them all together, and then check the encumbered funds available for that service and off. If the available funds are not there, then it's going to fail the edit. And if they are there, then it'll go ahead and pass them through for payment. So on your existing failed edit report, we're going to squeeze an S onto it. And the error message will be invoices total greater than encumbrance. So after that, what do you do with the invoices that failed edit? You're going to review on the report will display the invoices. In this example, I've got 2 invoices for the service in January, and they total $30,000. And when reviewing the encumbered amount available for January, only $25,000 is left. And so this is going to be why it had failed. And so you can kind of make a choice of what you want to do. You can delete one of the invoices, or you can delete all of the invoices. The menu option 13 is going to be where you're going to do that. And the menu option itself, I'll display in just a second. Basically, once you select the invoice and process it, it destatuses everything. It populates a file and flags it as a D-status to go back out to e-billing. When e-billing receives it, it's going to mark the invoice as D, and it's going to return the funds to the consumer's budget. So this is what our, after you select option 13 on the UFS screen, this is what the delete screen looks like. It wants you to input invoice numbers. And so you can do a line of them and then generate the process. And like I said, it's going to go back out to e-billing. So these are, in this process, I covered what to do with invoices that fail the invoice edit process. And now I'm going to talk about what to do with those invalid invoices that were received at the very beginning. It's pretty much the same thing. the file that these invoices are going to go out to is SINVINV. And so those that are on the report, that invalid invoice report that is generated with the inbound process, that would be the file where these are found. You delete it, again, it populates the file that goes back out to e-billing, and the funds are returned to the budget. And then also we set in the feature that will actually send an email to the vendor administrator, but the information that is contained in it is pretty limited. It basically just references their invoice number that was created when they created the invoice, and says that it was rejected. And basically from there, we recommend some additional communication if it's needed, and then the FMS can enter a new invoice and submit it for payment. You and they can see deleted invoice history in the SDP invoice history tab in e-billing. And for all invoices that get deleted through the failed invoice edit, it marks everything with a D status on the PAP Control L and M record. Okay, questions? We tried to make the SDP invoices as straightforward as possible, since you have no control over really what the FMS is creating. We tried to make it as simple of either you accept it or you reject it. All right, if there's no further questions with that, I'll move on to the accrual and payment process. We didn't change any functionality with this. Your SDP invoices can be accrued with or without your traditional invoices. We recommend in the beginning that you process them separately until you get the hang of things, but you can do them through the regular process. And then you'll still batch everything through cash requirements, paybacks, and checks. If for some reason you are going back and deleting an invoice that you've already paid, we modified the regular option 10, delete invoices, to accommodate the SDP invoices. It's going to put a D status on the invoice, create the reversing journal entry, and it'll populate the file to go back out to e-billing to put the funds back into the budget category. How you deal with funds with the FMS, that's going to be up to you guys and how you normally handle those types of things with your vendors. And then e-billing is going to de-status it and, like I said, put everything back into the budget. I feel like this went very, very fast. Okay, lay them on me. Nothing?
I think they're just trying to absorb it. I haven't got any questions because I haven't managed to sort it out yet.
Yeah. So, yeah, so your main differences are going to be, you're going to have some additional reports on the front end. And There'll be a little bit of processing with those, with the invoices that are rejected right off the bat. You know, some of those will be things that you guys will need to take care of before the FMS can submit invoices again. But hopefully the information as to why the invoice is invalid is sufficient. So like I said, most of the time you're going to be running into, it's going to be a problem of either the auth for some reason isn't posted or not created, or for some reason the FMS is trying to submit more money than what's available. And so that's kind of going to be like a communication issue, maybe a little bit with the FMS and the consumer, and when you set up your auth and how you do those. Because again, their funds are really driven by, you know, what they have for their budget, and the FMS is supposed to make sure that they don't spend their entire budget within the first 2 months.
I have a question. This is Jean from Far Northern.
Mm-hmm.
When you're doing a check run, what initials would you use? Because we leave it blank for all. Is that set up internally here by IT?
Initials on check run.
Yeah, to generate all of the invoices run for EFT or checks, you just put blank for all. You use SS for just the SSP. What initial would you use for the SDP?
Yeah, that's going to be something that's going to be up to your regional center.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So again, we haven't released the UFS code out to the regional centers yet. We're first going to get all of the e-billing deployments done, and then we'll do the UFS, and we'll release a technical bulletin to notify everybody of when everything's done and ready to go. If you have any questions, please feel free to email them to itsdp@dds.ca.gov.